Today creates my future. Today creates our future, now and forevermore. Because where we are, remember, is the totality of possibilities. Only we have to know it. What we do with our minds is incredibly important. In fact, that's the whole thing that we're talking about, what we do with our minds. Our minds are creative. We can create anything with our minds. We can change all circumstances. We can go in any direction. We can walk on coals when we didn't know we could. I mean, everybody knows it's impossible to walk on hot coals, and yet there are people that are doing it. How many people have heard about walking on hot coals? All right, how many people here have done it? Not many, but some. There are some people here that have done it. And we know it's impossible. And yet there are people on this planet today doing it. Starting with Tony Robbins, who is teaching people how to do it in one evening. Our minds are capable of so much more than we think. So we know that our thoughts are creative. And this is one of the most important laws of nature that we can possibly know. Remember, one idle thought does not mean very much. But thoughts that we think over and over are like drops of water. And at first there's just a few, but after a while you create a puddle, and then a pond, and then a lake, and then an ocean. And by our thinking, if it is negative, we can drown in a sea of negativity. Or if it is positive, we can float on the ocean of life. And it all has to do with how we use our thoughts to think. Now, do you live in the limitations of your past consciousness? Many, many, many people come to a point in life where they say, that's it. In fact, lots of us don't realize, but many of us put limitations on what life is and who we are and where we can go by the time we are 5 years old. We make our mental decisions by 5. Basically, we make our limitations and we say, this is it. And we don't let new stuff in. And if you're living by your past limitations, how can you possibly go into the totality of possibilities? How often do you live at the limitations of your parents' consciousness? My mommy, my daddy couldn't do this. They didn't go beyond this. This is what they said. You want to realize that whether they were the worst parents in the world or they were the best parents in the world, they had their own set of limitations, and you don't want to limit yourself by that. An affirmation that I've given many, many people to use is, I am willing to go beyond my parents' limitations. You can love them, and you don't have to live where their limitations are. We create our own reality. We do this by the thoughts we think and the words we speak. And when we can really understand that, we have the ability to make changes. So is our reality one of limitations and lack and I can't? Or is our reality one of the totality of possibilities? How much do we allow ourselves to stretch? When you have a problem, do you immediately set up the walls of your limitations, your mental limitations, or do you go through them? Are you using the tools you have learned? Or when there is a problem, do you immediately jump back to the old reactions? And where are your limits? Where do you see your limits? Remember, all fears are limitations, all fears. We put those up and it's like we have this wall around us that we can't go through. And not only can we not go through, but nothing can get in. Nothing can get in. All prejudices are limitations, all of them. We limit ourselves by saying somebody's not good enough. How can that be true when all souls are equal? The soul has no color, and the soul has no sexuality at all. So we want to go beyond that kind of limitation. All judgments and criticisms are limitations. When we judge another person, when we criticize another person, we are putting a wall up, and no way can good come to us. When we judge ourselves, when we criticize ourselves, it's like we've slammed a steel door down. And how can good come into our life? How can the totality of possibilities really operate when we're putting up our walls and our limitations? All guilts are limitations. All guilts. And we can't do that. There is no point in getting into guilt. If you've really done something in your life that's terrible, don't do it again. Just don't do it anymore. Guilt is a way of holding on to the past. And when you live in the past, you are not in the totality of possibilities. The present moment gives you the opportunity to move into the future. You can't live in the future either. You can only live here because this is where everything is happening, right here. See, when you are unwilling to forgive, you place limits on your growth. And yes, there are many of us that have things that are extraordinarily difficult to forgive. And yet it is part of our evolution and our growth. I've said this many times and I really believe it. I think we come to this planet many times to learn whatever lessons we need to learn. And for some of us, it's like coming to kindergarten. It's real simple and we just skip through life and it's easy. And for many of us, it's like going to graduate school, and the lessons are much tougher. And yet we come in with everything we need to handle every situation that there will be. And we want to know that. We don't want to put limits on ourselves. Remember, problems are opportunities for growth that we give ourselves. And they're either payback from past negative thinking, because remember, it's a very simple law of life. What you give out comes back. It may come back right away. It may not come back for a week or a month or 5 or 10 years. But what you give out is going to come back. And if it's coming back as payback, then you've got to deal with it. Or there are experiences where we test ourselves. Now, a lot of us have been doing a lot of work on ourselves. I know that. And we work on an issue and we say, oh, I'm going to clear this, and you do your meditation and your affirmation, etc., and you say, that's over with. I've cleared that. It's done. I'll never have to deal with that again, thank God. But how do you know you've really cleared it if you don't test yourself? So you've got to realize that whatever problem you work on and say, that's it, I'm really clearing it, I'll never do it again, you've got to test yourself to find out if you've really done it. So you create it one more time to see how you're going to react. Now, what happens with many people is the problem comes up and they jump back to the old way of reacting. And then on top of that, they beat themselves up and say, oh, all this work I've done, and see, I haven't gotten anywhere. I'm right where I used to be. Thrash, thrash. And that many people do that. But what we have to realize is that it's not that. It's a little test to see how are we going to react to it. Are we going to go into our old pattern, or are we going to go into the affirmations that we have learned, the new statements and the new truths about ourselves that we've decided are going to be true for ourselves? See, do we see limits, or do we open ourselves to possibilities? Tremendous possibilities. There are so many ways we can do things. Remember, we don't have to always know how things are to be worked out. We just need to be willing. Doesn't matter what the problem is. You don't have to figure out the how, but be willing to change, be willing to let go, be willing to open yourself to something new. We can trust and we can know. We can trust and know things like all is well, and everything is working out for the best. Everything is working out for the best. And stay with that. See, I think it's essential that we move away from our limited thinking or beliefs, or we're going to be left behind. And in the area of creativity, I go beyond the feelings of not being good enough or capable enough. And I release all sense of competition or comparison. We are unique beings in life. There's never been another person like us since time began. So what is there to compare or compete with? All we need to do is be ourselves. I move into the totality of possibilities in the area of creativity for myself. And I allow the creative energy of the universe to flow through me, expressing in ways that are deeply satisfying to me. And whatever I do, it is more than good enough. And in my finances, I go beyond my present income. I know I am not stuck there. I go beyond the economy. Doesn't matter what they're doing out there. I've said for a long time, my income is constantly increasing. It's an affirmation I've used for a long time. I go beyond my parents' income level. You have a right to earn more than your parents did. Women have a lot of problems with that. Often they find it difficult to earn more than their father did. You can love your father and go beyond his income level. I go beyond any feelings that I do not deserve. And I move into the totality of possibilities in the area of finances for myself. And I accept the totality of financial possibilities. The totality of financial possibilities. I recognize the one source that flows through many channels, and I realize that there is plenty for everyone, including me. You know, I use this image so often of standing before the ocean of life, and you're there with a container in your hand, and the container is up to you, how big you want it to be, and everybody else can be there also. And no matter how much you take, you can't rob the other person, they can't rob you. And nobody is going to drain the ocean dry. And if we can see life like that it's abundantly giving to us, and all we have to do is accept. I am open and receptive to all good. I allow my income to constantly expand, and I live comfortably and beautifully. I am the joy of life, expressing and receiving. You know, life is simple if we let it be, but we make it so complicated. But if we really just understand that what we think is what we get, what you believe is what will show up in your life. But your thinking, that's all changeable. It can move. See, what is the reality that we create for ourselves? I love these two images. Do we live in a dungeon of limitation, or do we live in a palace of possibilities? I like to feel that where I am is the totality of possibilities of all good. Not just yes or no or this or that. You know, we live and think in limited human mind thinking. It has to be this way or that way, or if it can't work this way, how can it happen? Well, the universe is incredibly smarter than we are and has the totality of possibilities to supply us with everything we desire, as long as we can believe that we deserve it.